Welcome to Lawyers, Guns and Money. I'm Tim Newton, and this gentleman here with me is the lawyer out of Lawyers, Guns and Money, Ben Hart from Integrity Legal. Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Good to be here.
So let's talk about an unpopular subject, and it's something that's going to confront us all at some stage. Either we're going to have to work through the processes of a relative who has died, or we are going to die ourselves. Now, let's start by talking about getting ready for this happenstance. Wills. Mm-hmm. If you are living here as an expat, do you need a will?
Well, I mean, it depends on your circumstances, and that's kind of a stock answer for us. But it's really going to depend on, do you have property here? That's the big one. And one thing I do think people often forget is even a single bank account. I think it's worth it to have a basic formalized will for Thailand, even for just a single bank account. We see this a lot with retirees. They might not have insignificant funds in those accounts, you know. Obviously, there's the 800,000 baht retirement visa balance you have to maintain, but oftentimes we find a lot of retirees will keep 500,000 baht, 1,000,000 baht just on hand here,
sure,
just in case they need it. And then, and when we see these cases, 90% of the time it's on folks that died what's called intestate, what we call in the common law system intestate. They died without any kind of will. And now they've got relatives and they just don't know what to do. And oftentimes you're dealing with relatives who've never even been here and don't really have any desire to come here. So the more that you can do in terms of a will to just sort of streamline the process of getting that moved over, the better, frankly.
Who's going to administer that? You leave it with your lawyer, and then the lawyer will say, okay, this goes to this person. The lawyer works it out?
Right. Generally, we do multiple copies, and we make sure, you know, sometimes there's some issues with bequests where they don't really want everybody to know exactly what's going on with that until after they're long gone and they don't have to deal with it. That's pretty rare. What we usually see, it's usually a single or one beneficiary and a backup, and basically they just make sure that person goes ahead and gets a copy. We usually keep one on file, and then if something happens, we process it.
What if you don't have a will? Does any money in your bank or your shareholdings in a company, does that go to the state?
Actually, under banking laws now, yes. Going back, let's see, I think it's like 7 years now. They changed the laws here in Thailand. So it used to be that if you died intestate and nobody claimed your bank account, those accounts just sort of sat in perpetuity, and the bank didn't really know what to do with it. I think now the time period is 10 years. If nobody pops up, okay, it just sort of reverts to the state. But yeah, it effectively, yes, it can go to the state. So it's a good idea to name somebody as a beneficiary.
Okay, let's go the step further. You pass away in Thailand. What happens to your body?
Okay, now it's going to be embassy specific. So primarily what you're going to be dealing with when a foreign national dies, obviously the coroner shows up here and it goes through all the Thai process. They essentially are going to go ahead and notify that person's embassy of nationality. And to be clear for dual nationals, it's whatever passport you're in Thailand on. Okay. I've seen this a few times where this caused a real problem, especially British-Irish folks that had two passports. It's going to be the passport you're in Thailand on. It's not whatever your other passport is. And they notify the embassy essentially, and I'm really oversimplifying this. They notify the embassy. That embassy will then notify, if you've got, like, for example, with the Americans, if you've notified the warden at the U.S. Embassy of who your next of kin is, or an emergency contact, they're going to contact that person. Actually, the embassy in those kind of situations does, in my opinion, kind of go above and beyond in trying to find some family member to go ahead and notify. And I have talked to, over the years, officers at American Citizen Services. That is not a pleasant experience at all for those folks. The other thing they're going to do, and this is important in an American context, and there's going to be similar counterparts in an Australian, British, Canadian, in any place really context, they're going to issue what's called a consular report of death abroad, CRDA. And for example, in America, even though you've got a Thai death certificate, you're also going to have that American certificate. You're going to be using that, or your next of kin is going to be using that for things like probate back in your home country. That's actually in a sense, the more definitive document regarding your death abroad.
Nice to see the embassy's doing something useful for once. It looks like they get involved with you when you're not really going to be able to appreciate it.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is something I do have to give credit where credit is due on. They do a lot of work on this stuff, and I've actually dealt with cases where you've got folks that have passed away, and it's hard to find the next of kin, and they do go out of their way to get that sorted out. I will give them credit on that.
Okay, the best thing you can do is not die in Thailand.
Yeah, well, if you can at all avoid it, don't die at all. But
Yeah,
obviously,
sure.
that's probably not going to happen.
Or if you are going to die at some stage, perhaps get a will. Is a will like a fairly cheap document to put together? Is it like a pro forma and you just put your name at the top and send it to my pet pussy or something?
No, not really. It depends. It really does depend. The formalities, as with everything in Thailand, the formalities are key. So you have to designate. You have to really go out of your way to get all the identifying documents, because we get clients actually that get kind of peeved with us because we ask for this sort of what they think is a very simple document, but a lot of our attorneys will say, hey, I need XYZ for ID documents and all this. Oh, why do I have to give that? Blah, blah, blah. Well, in Thailand, when the time comes, that's going to have to go through a judge. It may be a fairly short period of time, but it's not a pro forma thing. They're going to want to know exactly who's who, and they're going to want to know exactly where that stuff is going.
Okay. So you make it very complicated. I should go down to the other lawyers, Martin, Barton and Fargo.
Up to you.
Okay.
Certainly up to you.
Ben Hart is from Integrity Legal. Wills are just, I suppose, one of those things that once you get to my sort of age, you really probably need to have a document, and Integrity Legal may be an option for you if you're looking for those services. Ben Hart, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us on Lawyers, Guns and Money, and we've got another one coming up about every week. We'll see you soon.